Our guest today lost over 100 pounds in weight before discovering a way to build a business around his newfound relationship with food. Host of Kitchen Hustle, creator of The Dinner Club, and founder of wellness media company Zeal, he knows the importance of bringing value to an audience. To discover how high-performing achievers fuel their success, his show guests have included serial entrepreneurs Gary Vee, Tom Bilyeu, and motivational speaker Gabrielle Bernstein. So for a lesson in how to fuel your passion, please join me in welcoming chef and wellness entrepreneur Charles Chen to the Escape Your Limits podcast. So Charles, thanks for coming over today.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to be back in the studio.
And it is the second time we've done this as well. So
yeah, it's actually better though. Yeah.
Yeah,
we've time is always better.
Had a warm up. So what have you been up to recently then?
What have we been up to? We just did an event with Microsoft and Google. So just been tapping into like the corporate world, which has been fun. Yeah. Bigger budget, more fun to create experiences for team members, and yeah, it's been fun. So what sort of things are you seeing happening? You know, so you're in the, I guess I'll call it sort of like fitness and food fusion. Is that a good way of describing? Yeah, wellness. What sort of things are you seeing trends? You know, you obviously get around, you see a lot of people in that world. What's going on in that world at the moment? So I actually just went to a panel. One of my friends started a CBD company, but CBD is like huge. There's so many different brands just popping up everywhere. Everyone's trying to put it in different creams, topically, skincare. You're seeing it in food even. People are trying to create CBD oil that you can cook with. So it'll be interesting to watch the regulations as it develops. But another thing I think, self-care is a huge component in the wellness, health and wellness. More people are focusing on kind of mental health, and you see these apps like Calm and then also Headspace. So that's really cool to see. Yeah. Why do you think CBD in food? Like I've had, I've tried the drops more for my jet lag, and I don't know, considering it's very expensive, like some of these bottles. If you're getting quality, it's not cheap. Don't get the stuff at the gas station. That's where like, you know, the regulation, people will market and say how much, you know, CBD is in there, but active ingredients, there's a lot of false labeling, so that's why there needs to be more regulation around that. Yeah, and someone told me that, you know, there's a lot of imported stuff and people just say like this CBD is CBD, but apparently there's something to do with the amount, how concentrated it is that right? Yeah, I also heard, you know, don't quote me on this, but CBD, also the variation with THC. If there's a little bit of THC, someone said, I talked to a doctor yesterday that was saying that it actually helps you get the benefits if there's a small percentage of THC. But who knows? Yeah, well, I tried one called Exenol, and I have to take a few droppers. I don't know exactly how much is in there, but that seems to be enough just to take the edge off and help me sleep if I'm traveling. Yeah. But you know, like in food, you know, what do you think they're putting it in there? Do you think you get any effect out of it, or? It's tricky because there are some supplements that are better in food because you can actually assimilate it. But I don't know if it's necessarily for CBD. Right. I don't know if it actually it gets rid of the benefits if it's it's combined with food. So I'm waiting to see more testing on this. But I mean, there's been cannabis dinners and CBD dinners happening, and it's part of the experience. It's just any way they can get it into you. They're like, just put it in there. It's kind of like when probiotics became a thing. They're like putting probiotics in skincare, probiotics in all your protein shakes, everything, right? Yeah. So I think it's one of those industry marketing trends, and everyone's trying to jump on it. Yeah. So you got the CBD, which is the sort of non-hallucinogenic part. Yeah. And then you're saying they're putting THC in food as well, aren't they? Yeah, so there's if you look up dinner experiences, there's a lot of chefs doing cannabis dinners, which is kind of cool. I mean, I think I would be very high. I don't know how much they're putting into the food, but there's a lot of cool ways to create experiences. Yeah. Right, and so I guess you eat and then you're high and then you hang around. Is that what happens? I guess, but every dinner is different. So for me, the dinners are more about the connections and the conversations, and then the food is something that elevates the conversations. But I don't know if people are having very philosophical conversations when they're under the influence or being that high.
And is that in restaurants or in people's houses?
Pop-ups, they do a lot of private pop-ups in LA. There's, Cannabis Chef.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been cool.
So tell us a bit about your background. How did you get into this space, and tell us a bit about your story.
Yeah, so I call myself, I accidentally gotten into this profession, and it's all through experience. It came through like a rock bottom. At the age of 15, I weighed 265 pounds, overweight, pre-diabetic, hit rock bottom, and I was just like, I'm tired of feeling like shit. I was eating the wrong foods at the time. I was addicted to junk food. I didn't exercise. I ate drank orange soda as like my water. Never drank water. Just was lethargic, and I hit my rock bottom, and epiphany. Just woke up in like panic attack of not being able to breathe, and I was like, oh shit, I have to do something about this. I'm too young to be feeling shitty. So I started doing all these research. I started looking at the foods I was putting in my body, and I naturally got into the kitchen, started loving to create recipes, but I wanted to swap out these ingredients of unhealthy, things and recreate them for myself. So I started dabbling in food and started a blog. The blog took off. I started sharing all my wellness journey tips and tricks and recipes, and slowly it developed. I was working with Whole Foods and then worked with Williams-Sonoma, and just kind of grew my audience naturally. But it's always been wellness focused. I got into food to heal myself, and I was very fascinated by the alternative route of healing your body rather than going to pharmaceuticals, which I think there's always you should always have an option, but I heal myself through food, and I'm passionate about wellness. It's kind of evolved throughout the years, and I guess I was an influencer before it was a thing. I didn't even know what it was. When people started calling me that, I was like, why are they calling me this, right? But yeah, that started early in the days. I started blogging when nobody was blogging. I was on YouTube years ago. It's crazy because my cousin laughs at me. He's like, dude, you have so many videos. I was like, I know, it's crazy. Yeah.
So was that something that you planned to be as a career, or was it just happened by accident then?
It was always a side hustle. So it was always starting after I healed myself through my weight loss transformation. Losing 100 pounds is like a whole nother person. I started becoming the person that everyone would come to when they had weight issues. Everyone thought it was just the food. And so I wanted to share that. It's more about the inspiration, your habits, your thought patterns, and who you surround yourself with, and how do you kind of get rid of those subconscious things that hold you back, right? Your limiting belief systems. So I started sharing that. It became a passion of mine of I want to help other people. I made a promise to myself that if I was able to help myself, I would give back and help others. So the blog grew, and I started doing TV interviews, and this was when I was in college and I was studying marketing and business. And the blog became almost like a case study, because I was like, oh shit, I built something. This is naturally something. So I would always gear towards my case studies, towards my personal brand. And I was like, how else can I build this? How else can I pivot? So I started doing video content. I shifted from blog content to, well, everyone's doing recipes now. How can I make a better impact and contribute more? I'm going to start doing videos. I started tapping into videos, teaching myself how to edit, and then that started to grow. My blog was called something else before, and I realized the power of marketing and branding, because everyone knew my blog, but they didn't know who I was. Right. And I was like, okay, this is a problem now, because I would say oh, I'm doing an event with Whole Foods. I'm like, oh, I love your blog. Who are you again? And I was like, oh shit, I need to start personal branding. So then I was like, let me just change it to my name, because I'll never change my name. So I was like, and I can pivot into different things if I want to. So I changed it to Charles Chen TV, and then it just kind of stuck with me. I started doing a lot of TV appearances. My name didn't change, and I'm able to grow other things under it. So,
and you've been on some pretty popular TV shows with them. Tell me a bit, where you've been on.
Yeah, that was fun. So, my career has allowed me to be on Food Network. I worked with Dr. Oz, and I'm always on there. That's great. NBC, I did a travel show for TLC Discovery, which was so much fun. I got to travel in Asia, eat all this food. I felt like Anthony Bourdain. I gained so much weight because I was eating and like trying to. You would eat double time because you would eat with the crew and then you would eat on camera. So it was crazy, but so much fun. It's been opening up a lot of doors, which is great. But I think something to keep in mind for anyone who's in the personal development space or fitness or who's into personal branding or content creation is that TV is just a vehicle, but you need to already have an identity of like what your passion and what your core value for your company and like what is your mission behind your company. So mine has always been personal development, wellness, transformation. So whatever I do, it has those components. So TV is just a way to leverage that and give you more exposure. But I think a lot of people go into it with the wrong reasons because I have a lot of people coming to me like, how do I get on TV? I'm like, why do you want to get on TV? You need to, like, and it has never been like my goal. It was always just like, it naturally happened. And yeah, it provided more opportunities, but there needs to be a more kind of, what's the reasoning behind what you're doing rather than just being on TV.
Yeah, I hear that with a lot of trainers. I guess it sounds pretty sexy, getting on television and does that in itself create business, or is that just a platform to build something around it? How would you explain what?
I think TV is good for building.
Right.
I think it's good for PR and marketing. It's good for leveraging and putting your name next to a product or brand that you're creating. It gives you more credibility. But I don't think it brings you money unless you can monetize outside of it, which is like, you're not getting paid to be on TV most of the time, or you're getting paid very shitty. It's about the endorsements. It's about your products, your books, and things afterwards. So it's about how you kind of line your ducks in order.
Yeah.
So I think right now I'm in a stage where it's like I'm focusing on the products because I've already given so much free content. I give so much. I do a lot of my events, but now I want to create streams of like my books, my products. But I'm also very careful about what products I want to line my brand next to because you only get one chance to like put a product out there, and if it's shitty, nobody will ever buy from you again. So I think the integrity of the product is very important. A lot of people get some fame, they put out some shitty product, ruins your brand. It's like the quality has to be there, the integrity has to be there. So, but I'm fascinated by using TV to build an actual business rather than just being a personal brand.
How long did it take you to go from blogging to being asked to do things like TV shows?
When did I start? I would say probably like 6-7 years you start getting little things, but now like you get so many opportunities and it's about saying no to all the, now it's like, it's all about what you say no to rather than what you say yes to. I say no most of the time because you're slowly starting to build your personal brand, and then you have more kind of like creativity. Like you're creating your own content, so you have say on what you want to put out there. When you start getting into TV world, entertainment, it's very tricky to navigate because there are a lot of producers with their own motives. So you have to make sure that you're using television for good, and that won't kind of go against your personal brand or make you look bad because it can turn against you very quickly. So I've been always very careful about like what I say yes to. I don't do any more competition shows because it doesn't really serve me. I only do things that I feel like can bring value and is good for the brand.
I guess it's nice to be able to turn things away.
It's hard because sometimes it's like, oh, it's great exposure, but you got to do what's right. Yeah.
So what would be, I guess, a dream for a lot of people to get to that position? What would you say are some of the things that you consciously did to make people want to invite you onto the shows, would you say, if you had to kind of deconstruct it and sort of, choose a few sort of key things that you could potentially duplicate?
I think it's really important to leverage partnerships. I think we're in a day and age where partnerships are key. You're no longer just like, especially if you're growing a business, it's so smart to align with other brands that are non-competing and that you can grow together. So I was very smart to connect with brands that I loved and respected, that aligned with my mission, that had a bigger exposure than I did. So like working with Amazon, Whole Foods, like, you know, all these brands had an established presence and I wasn't near anything, like no one knew who I was, right? So it's like, that helped me get my name out there, and they were very good about promoting me. So then when someone would hear my name, they would attach it and associate it with a different brand. So that was leveraging brand presence, and then your content, whatever you put out. Strategically, I always say like your Instagram and all that stuff, who you associate with, what brands you associate with is so important, because it's like, say like you're finding someone to interview and then you look at their Instagram and you're like, what are they posting? Like, I don't want to associate myself. It's the same thing with friends, right? You're the quality of like the people you hang out with. So what you say yes to can bite you up in the ass later. So then that's why I'm so careful. Like, do I want to align with this brand? Does this make sense? And in the beginning, you were just doing it for free too. Like I did so many things for free because I knew later on it would pay back. Like I was like, oh, I'll do this event for free if I can, you know, establish this brand kind of alignment with someone else. So that's one thing, creating your own content, and just, you know, a lot of people are sitting around waiting for that opportunity. I say just keep creating, and then those will naturally come to you. Yeah.
What's your thoughts on kind of mastering your content? Because you're a big part of what you do, I guess, is, you know, is creating materials and information. What's your journey been like from, I suppose, the early days of what you was putting out, and how have you honed your craft so that, you know, when you go on a Dr. Oz, your content's awesome? Tell us about that.
I think it's always deconstructing. So it's like putting yourself into the audience's shoes. Who's watching my show? How can they benefit? What are some things that I personally struggle with? It always comes from like somewhere that's like a little bit more emotional, because I feel like that's like your EQ. You're playing on the emotional route, but it's like, what do people actually want to know and what do they want to learn? Gary Vee has been really good about sharing the answers to things that kids are going through. He speaks a lot to millennials, but he also speaks to business owners, right? So he knows how to talk to his market. So identifying who your market is, and then what questions do they ask often, and then how can you give a different spin so then you're not just like everyone else. So I think it's been really interesting, like with the wellness space, with the food background, with the weight loss, and then like owning the transformation space rather than like, I don't want to just be a chef, because I'm like, I don't want to be another culinary, like there's enough of those, right? I have a specific messaging, which is I use food to heal my body, and then I talk about all the things around transformation. So yeah.
Have you evolved that over time? Like what, you know, where your sort of idea about what your brand should be probably 3 or 4 years ago, do you think that sort of continues to evolve and you get better at understanding you know, who you're serving?
It's always evolving, and that's a tough thing. I think even you, like as market is shifting, you always are kind of observing what's going on in the market, what's changing, what's trending, what's not working. If you even like look at transportation, look at Uber, you look at housing, there's so many things changing all the time. So I'm always reevaluating like my brand and like how can I best serve my audience and serve in the territories that no one else is speaking on.
Yeah. Do you look at, well, who would you say is your sort of target, or do you know who your target audience is then?
It's always been like 60% females, but then the men have been growing so much because the females will share it with their males. And now I'm speaking more like of a broader audience, so I can speak to the men as well, because I'll talk about emotional well-being for men that nobody talks about, and I can own that space because nobody else wants to talk about it. So it's slowly changing. It's really cool to see that dynamic and making sure that I like the approach that it's unisex and it's not too female focused, because in the beginning I was focusing on females 25 and older, and then now it's just, if I'm looking at my analytics, it's like there's a lot of men watching too, because I think there's more fitness stuff, there's more transformation. Everyone wants to feel good.
Yeah. It's interesting because I guess, you know, things do change and shift. And I suppose, do you ever are you ever concerned about, if you say, for example, you have got that female audience and it's working, to sort of shift and maybe sort of lose what you think is your core to go into another area? How do you sort of get that balance between where you should be spending your time and content?
I think the power of social media and the cool thing about it is that it's something that you can get instant feedback from. So like with Instagram, you can use Instagram polls, for example, and you can A/B test with videos. You can like do an edit for females and then for males, and then just put it out, upload it, and you can delete it later, but just to see what the attraction is. Sometimes I will put out content, and this is a thing that I've learned like with YouTube, like people have clickbait, and like you see headlines, how media uses this all the time just to get your attention. I'll create content in the first 15 seconds, it might be something crazy or something weird just to get a reaction, to see if people are actually reacting and actually paying attention. And then you can just kind of like see if people are listening to what you're saying, because they'll be like, hey, didn't you say da 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 da? So I'll just like test it out just to see what is responding and what's getting adequate feedback.
Yeah, I guess you're a younger generation, certainly than me, and I talk to a lot of business owners that say, this social media is great, but does it really make a difference? It requires a lot of time, and if you do it well, you've got to be very authentic, and you almost can't get someone else to manage your account if you're successful with it. In your experience, how important is it in terms of building a brand and building a business and making money?
How important is it to building a brand?
In this day and age, yeah.
I think at the end of the day, building a business is just providing value, and sometimes we overthink it, because yesterday I had dinner with a friend, mentor, who's built successful ventures and sold it off, right? And he's like, Charles, don't overthink it, because there are some projects that you're going to be tied to that are passion projects, but there are also some projects where you can just sell it. Like he's not tied to it personally. And because my brand has always been something that's very personal to me, I'm very careful, because it also has my name attached to it, is that I'm very careful about what I attach it to. But he was like, just create this product and then you can sell it, right? It's like there's a demand and you can test it out, but don't overthink it. So it's interesting because that's his perspective, but I've been always very careful with what I associate my name with, and then what products I want to put out there. Because I think it's like conscious capitalism. Like, you don't just put out a product. How does it affect the environment? How does it affect everyone around you? Are you actually doing good? A lot of people get into the fashion industry and then they find out it's the highest polluting industry. And it's like, what, do we need another clothing brand? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, are we thinking about the world, or are we just thinking about end profit? And I think nowadays it's important for us to think on those terms as well.
In terms of leaders and people that run a business, do you think in this day and age it's important to have and develop and communicate your own personal brand alongside your business? Should you be out there sharing who you are and telling the story, or do you think you could get away without doing it?
I think you have to now.
Really?
I think it's changing so much. I mean, big example if you just look at the whole Equinox thing, and that's getting into politics, but it's like, it's so interesting that our consumers are so smart nowadays. There's a lot of transparency. They want to know where their dollars are going. And if you see the successful small brands that have been able to like get into the industry for less than how many months? If you look at Kylie Jenner, she's built this $1 billion business because of herself, right? So it's like, if you look at these people, they're following people and a lifestyle that they want to associate with. I think the day and age where people can hide behind a brand and be mysterious and not know who's running it, it's not working anymore, because I don't know, it's like everything's out there. You can't really hide. So I think it's important if you can use it to your benefit, obviously, if you, but it makes you to dig deeper, because it's almost like the whole world is like a social media, and you're going to get feedback and people will call you out.
So I guess you are a millennial, aren't you? I guess what are other people like your friends? Where do they spend a lot of their time? Is it really, do they use, like, you go on TV, traditional television?
Yeah, they're not watching TV.
No,
no, and it's just interesting because every time I get on another like TV show, I'm just like, none of my friends watch it unless I post it on Instagram. It's middle America, but that's a large portion of people still, you know, and sometimes it's important, like when I'm creating a product, I'm talking to middle America,
Really?
which is good because TV accessed all those people, but now it's slowly shifting to like Netflix is taking over, YouTube, and all these subscription models. It's just interesting to see Apple TV, you know, all these people are getting into content. And at the end of the day, it reminded me like content is so important. Like that's the only thing that you only have proprietary. Like if you create a product, great, but people buy the product because of people's certain content. So my friend started Four Sigmatic and people follow that. And if you look at like Bulletproof Coffee, Dave Asprey, it's become like the podcast, Tim Ferriss, it's like all this podcast, lifestyle, movement, people want to associate. They have the same thought patterns and like, you know, things that they're into. So that's what, you know, social media has allowed all these millennials and personal brands to do. Not everyone's successful at creating an actual business because not everyone's suited out for it, but it's interesting to see the ones that actually can build a brand. And to me, that's more important because I want longevity and I want to build something that I can eventually sell or like create something that's valuable rather than just be on TV. You're not going to be on TV forever. So you have to like plan like, okay, what's next?
What's important for millennials in terms of brands? You know, what are they, let's talk about the wellness space because that's where we operate, but what do they look for? Where do they go? Where do they find information from?
It's honestly, there's a lot of like, it used to be like YouTube, Instagram. I think they're digging a little deeper now, so they're doing a lot of research. So then there's so many, we're bombarded with experts, so it's really hard. And I think that's why it's like people following you for a long period of time and seeing you develop and seeing if your integrity is there. If you sell out, then people are like, oh, I don't trust this. If you start, you know, promoting like sugar teddy bears or whatever, it's like, oh, they obviously got paid, you know? So it's just interesting to see who's still in it for the right reasons, but you can still find experts but they're usually finding it on Instagram, on social. And then I think word of mouth is also so important.
Right.
Because there's some brands, if you come into my cabinet, look at all my supplements, it's usually, and this is like, I tell my friends, like I'm a purist, I will buy things because the product is really good. Even though I understand marketing and branding, there's a lot of like pretty packaging, but the product is shit. And I was like, I support so many products that look like shit that would not be very appealing, but the products are like high integrity. I know the sourcing, I've talked to the owners, and I believe in the products.
Right.
Yeah.
And so do you think that's really what, I guess, more of a younger generation is, they want to understand that story? Like you've just explained it, like obviously someone must have told you that story, so the packaging could be stripped away, but you knew where they got it from, why they got into it, their reasons. Is that really what, you know, in terms of marketing, then it's more about having those stories that people can buy into, do you think?
It's tricky because I feel like I dig a lot deeper than most people because I understand the marketing world and like I've been in-house marketing for another product and there's a lot of false labeling. Like, you know, there's a lot of things that aren't regulated, and if it's pretty and it's your favorite color, you know, someone's job is to study that. Is like what trigger points, like what color, how do I keep attention span of someone like this? Same thing with social media. So it's really tricky. But for me, what I look for when I look at a product is integrity. I want to know the sourcing. I ask questions, I'll email, I'll taste it, I'll test it, I'll look at if there's any weird ingredients. I'm like, why do you put this in there? Is it just convenience? Is it for shelf life? You know, so, and then usually just getting to know the owners, like what's their intention behind building this brand? Is it just the profit? Do they actually care? You know, there's a lot of opportunities. There's nothing wrong with wanting to make money, but it's like, do it for the right reasons, you know?
Do you then reflect that type of information when you're putting out your material? So when you've got a product, are you consciously making sure that you're sharing that part of the story, would you say?
Oh, I absolutely will, yeah.
Really?
So like the sourcing is so important. I can't just get something and it's like, it says it's organic, it's not. I want to have some sort of personal connection to the product that I'm building. So that's why I am only associating myself to products that I can relate to, that have history, that really mean something to me, rather than just being one of these people like, oh, I have a new protein line or like a all greens mix. It's like, you know, anyone can do that. It's just like slapping your face on a thing. It's very easy to do for quick gain though. What
are some of the products that you promote, sell, monetize, whether it's a service or an actual physical product?
I use collagen, so that's one thing. I use probiotics. These are kind of things that I go with, like supplements that I take all the time. What else? I'm big onto adaptogens, like herbs. And right now, the product I'm talking about, I'm doing a lot of research in like Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine, because I think TCM is like an underrated thing. It's thousands of years of research that hasn't been able to bridge into the new age and like the younger audience, and I want to be the person to do that. So I'm doing a lot of research, talking to a lot of doctors, finding formulations, testing things out. How do I make this taste better? And going back to Asia and like doing sourcing, and like, so that's my next big venture that I'm really excited about. Just lots of research. Yeah.
And is that because another part of the business is doing the events as well?
Yeah. So right now, I have a company called Zeal, and we create experiences for different brands, such as Google, some corporate, some private. We also do like festivals, private dinners. It's all about experiential. And what I've learned is that experiential marketing is very, very powerful. Talk about how do people find out about products. If you can create an experience and tie it to a memory, it's more powerful than seeing an ad. I think everyone's bombarded with ads. So how do you differentiate yourself from everyone else? That's why I got into experiential marketing, because I understand it's a lot more work, but when you can do it right, it's very powerful.
So a big part of what you do is, so you've got the nutrition and the fitness side, which really go hand in hand. I suppose a lot of businesses focus just on the fitness.
Yeah.
How important do you think it is in, you know, probably in the future from your perspective, at being able to kind of, you know, do you foresee, you know, having gyms and restaurants combined, and you know, where do you see that type of thing going?
So something that I've been very passionate about is health and tech, right? So something that I've been seeing is the customized supplements, customized food, you know, for people. Something that I always talked about from the very like first days of my career is like when people would come to me and ask me like, what do I eat for my body? I can't tell you that, because what works for me doesn't work for you. And I think more and more it's about personalization. That's the future. From shoes to clothes to like looking at epigenetics and creating a specific formulation for your probiotics and your gut health. That's huge. So I'm interested in seeing, it's just fascinating that the food space hasn't evolved for so long, and someone looking in the food space, I'm always like, where's the disruption? Because back in the caveman stage, it's like we cook food. I'm like, where can we reinvent and make this a little bit more efficient and actually accessible? Like, I don't know, like I'm really just looking and like, what's gonna be next? So I think personalized food, like restaurants, that would be really cool. Like if you can go into, I'm sure like you'll have like all your kind of like materials on like a bracelet, and you can go in and scan it and like get proper nutrition based on like, you know, your DNA. That would be awesome.
Do you think it's got something to do with, I suppose, if you come up with a book with a certain type of diet, like, you know, even paleo, for example, that, you know, seems to be still quite a big thing, where you can sort of sell a book, you can sell the food, and everybody's doing it, you know, and you're going to hit the mass, you go on TV and you're selling it. Do you think that it's probably sort of driven these diet fads, as opposed to what you're talking about? I guess it's very difficult to scale that, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, and that's been the tough part. So, you know, working with, I've got offered to write a book like years ago, and we didn't take the deal because I was like, I think I can do something better, right? So we've been putting together a proposal, and you know, it's really funny that people around you want to put you in like, oh, just do weight loss, you know, like you're going to be great in weight loss. And it's good to identify where you are, but I've been focusing on like transformation, because I don't want to just come out with a book on recipes, because that's not just my story. Someone else can write a recipe book, or someone can just look online. So I came up with like the trifecta of transformation, which is like customized to the person, but it's still a method or a modality that I feel like works and everyone can tweak it to their own liking. But it's coming up with something proprietary that you can stand by. And like 10 years later, have you ever read like Peter Thiel's book, 0 to 1, one of the best books I think in business if you're ever starting a startup or venture? Like one of the questions he asks is like, is this going to be relevant in 10 years? If not, don't do it. Like, you know, a lot of people are like, quick fix, CBD, it's like 10 years from now, is your company still going to be profitable? You know, not really.
So talk about your trifecta then. What's that, and how's that relevant to someone who's listening?
Yeah, so the trifecta of transformation, this can connect to anyone, whether you're dealing with weight loss, business, whatever, right? So I figured out transformation starts with 3 key components, which is spirit, body, and kitchen. So what you fuel your body with is gonna change the way you think. And then I think spiritual connection is so, you know, important, and not a lot of people talk about. I'm not talking about religion, I'm just talking about having a connection to your higher self. And when you do certain things, act with integrity and have healthy values, it connects and aligns everything. And then your body, obviously taking care of your body. But I think that if you don't have a healthy spirit connection, you're not going to have a strong why and why you take care of your body. So I feel like everything is interconnected, and it also correlates with your relationships in your life, with family, with friends, your healthy work-life balance, and the reason why you do everything. One of my favorite books is Simon Sinek's Start With Why, and that's always been my key, is like, if you don't know, I feel everyone has a purpose in life, and you don't have to find it. It's already within, so you just have to allow and discover it. And you might not know everything right away, but you follow the dots. And that's what I did with my career, and I'm still doing that till this day, which is like, oh, this has worked. Okay, let's pivot towards this way. I'm sure you as a business owner, like starting from just one dumbbell, like that's what you had to do. You're like, oh, this is working. This is filling a need in the marketplace. I feel good. Going with that feeling good is part of like your spirit connection. So for me, radical transformation starts with the trifecta. And that's what I'm passionate about writing. And I've helped many clients lose 100 pounds and, weight loss, but it's not just about the foods, it's your relationship with your food, your emotional well-being from a child, things that you haven't resolved, maybe like belief systems you created when you were a little kid through trauma that you have to heal. We're constantly healing as we're growing. And I think your business is only as good as your personal transformation. A lot of people think there's a disconnect, especially if they're analytical and type A, and they're like, oh yeah, how does this have to do with anything? It's like, now and more I'm talking to a lot of leaders, like they get to the top, but they're just kind of empty. Like you make all this money and they just have no connection to like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Because once you start making money, it's just like 0, 0, 0s, and it's like, what's the meaning of life? Like I have friends who sell their companies and they're like, what the fuck? Like this is what I asked for. Now I don't know what I'm doing with my life. So it's just interesting to see people navigate, but do the work now. So then when things like that happen, you know how to navigate. Yeah. But having that connection is key to, I think, anything in life.
How do you think about community then in that, with that philosophy that you've got? Do you think this is something you do one-to-one with a trainer, or do you think these are things that people can do and share as a group, like going to a club or something to reinforce that?
Yeah, I am a big believer of the power of community. This is why I started doing experiential events, meeting people, connecting people, especially with the social media age. We can get lost in our own little bubble and like never connect with people. So yeah, there's a thing called co-elevation, and my mentor speaks about this. It's about like, how do you uplift people? But I think that it also requires time of spending time alone. There's nothing wrong with spending time alone, but also you need to reconnect back into community and like, how do I serve the people around me? How do I help people? But gyms, why people join social, clubs and like masterminds. I'm a big proponent of like learning together rather than try to figure everything out yourself. I was on a panel with other entrepreneurs this past week, and it was so interesting that there was one person who was like, I don't believe in mentors. I've got here by myself and no one's ever helped me. And I was like, why would you want to do that? It's so depressing. He's like, I'll never help someone else. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, that's such a like hurt mentality, you know? But I am a big believer in like paying it forward, helping others, mentoring others, finding mentors, and building community.
What do you think, if you talk about, there's a lot of listeners that are in the traditional fitness business, you know, what would you say is probably missing from some of these traditional fitness big box gyms now that I guess are out there trying to provide these solutions for people, you know, helping them lose weight, etc. You know, what in your mind as a sort of an outsider, what would you say is kind of missing from that type of business to stop people coming back? Because, you know, it's obvious that they go there and they don't get the results, or they get results and they leave and then they come back and it doesn't seem to work like it should do.
Yeah. I honestly think if you throw in a therapist in there, the success would be like, everyone's like, there's a stigma on mental health and people going to a therapist, and maybe some people didn't grow up with it. I think it's so healthy to talk to a third party. So I think if you throw in a rebrand and throw in like a therapist at every gym, you'll see the success level goes up, because it's never about what food someone's eating. It's about the motivation and like the subconscious that people haven't tapped into. Or hypnotherapy, I think, is a huge thing. The power of your subconscious, because we only do what we know, and also our belief systems are tied into things that were created when we were a little kid. So you might keep repeating the same patterns and you're like, why am I doing this? And it's because a belief system in the past has allowed you to believe what you believe. So until you challenge that and look at it and heal it, you'll keep doing the same thing. So people like try different fad diets, but same shit happens. Like, then that's when you have to like, that's why the personal work and using a coach like a therapist or like a hypnotherapist can actually benefit a lot of people. It's like if you're seeing patterns, like they're there for a reason. They're trying to like wake you up, but you're not listening. You're just like ignoring it, and then you're trying to put a Band-Aid on it. It's deeper. Like transformation is so much deeper than just like, oh, I went to the gym today and I ate, right? Yeah.
You talk about earlier the panel on this and sort of mental health. You know, why I certainly read a lot about it more now. Do you think that people are more comfortable in just talking about it, where years ago maybe they didn't even know about it or acknowledge it? And do you think it's good that people are starting to sort of share some of those things?
Yeah, I think Brene Brown has great books on vulnerability and shame and things like that. The content that is being put out and what people are responding to, like Oprah's been like such a big pusher. But even like the Me Too movement, I think with all the chaos that's going on in the world, we live in a dualistic world. So where there's darkness, there's also a lot of light. So whatever darkness is brought to the table will allow people to dig deeper and look at the other side. How do we not repeat this? So I think there's a lot of people being held accountable for their actions, and then it dives deeper into, okay, how do we solve this? We have to look at this as a holistic approach. It's not just about pointing the finger. It's like, how do we heal people who are hurt? Because hurt people only do what they know, which is hurt other people. So I think it's very healthy, and I think younger generations are more open about it. And also, we're just, even if it goes back to marketing, is that like nobody wants the kind of polished bullshit. Like it's so like, you know, it's so like scientific that it's like, oh, this is so like not real, you know? Like, and because we're bombarded with so much, more people, sometimes my YouTube videos, I used to like go so hard to make my videos like perfect, and then I would make a vlog video and be like, why is this responding way more? Because I'm talking straight to the camera. I'm having this authentic engagement. But yeah, I think it's changing, and I think the conversation, it's all about starting the conversation and holding space. So whether you do that in a group environment, I even think a lot of these like big gyms, like I'm not gonna name any names, but like I go to one of them, and it's like the moment you walk in, there's just like this fear-based like way that they run their gyms based off of vanity and like things, and it's like it's not about community, it's not about building people, and that's why I feel like smaller gyms like do better, because like people know each other's names, they hold each other accountable, it's not like this weird environment. I think that day and age is like over.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting you say that, because I guess really I did a post on it a little while ago. The message is really much, it's selling a six-pack, and not that there's anything wrong in having a six-pack, but the message seems to be very, very sort of narrow to a real small percentage of people that a lot of people can't connect with or can't really get there.
Yeah.
And it seems to turn off so many more people and benefits from fitness. Like even if if I have a bad day, I go out for a run, my mood just changes. I feel better.
Yeah.
I'm better when I come home after a run to my family. Sometimes I get back from work and it's better. Go out for a run and then come back and you'll be better.
Yeah.
And there seems to be so many other benefits that we're not selling or communicating.
Yeah, and that's self-care. So that's like taking care of yourself, and then you can help someone else. But it's the same thing, like going back to the gyms, it's like, are you selling a fear base? Are you selling, like, if you're starting to see like different ads, like it's so interesting for me to even watch a lot of wellness or like Instagram posts. A lot of females will like share their stretch marks and like show themselves authentically, because we've been bombarded with all the airbrush models and things like that it's not working anymore. Like
Really?
We're so like, we've seen so many six packs and like nice bodies, especially living in LA. It's like that doesn't work anymore. So if you show the opposite, it's authentic, it's real. It's like, hey, I'm struggling. I just had 2 kids and I'm struggling with my weight and I don't want to give up. I'm going to start a community so then we can all keep each other accountable. That works way more than, oh, I got a 6-pack. That used to work. I don't think anymore. So I think from even when I started my transformation and even doing live events, I always start with my rock bottom to connect with people if they feel like they can't relate. Because they look at me now and they're like, oh, who's this kid? Like, so I always start with connection and share your truth, and then people will like let their guards down.
So is that something that you're actually seeing now? Because I guess I still see this in a lot of marketing and on social media where people are still selling that the perfect ripped body 6-pack. But I guess you're probably a lot more into that than me, but is that a general trend that you're starting to see coming through? Being real, authentic, and showing the horrible stuff that you don't want to talk about.
Showing everything. There's like this swipe on Instagram. It's like Instagram life and real life. Like like you just like, so if you like superpose and then it'll be like flabby like real life. It's like, but no, I think people are responding to it. I even saw like a gym ad that it was like a video. Instead of using like fitness models, they just use regular people. And I thought it was genius because it was on Facebook and it got my attention. I was like, this is so smart because they're using real people. These are the people who are going to the gyms. Yeah. And it's motivating because it's like someone who's not in perfect shape, but like inspired to reclaim their health. I think it's like, you don't want to do it just for the sake of doing it. You want to do it because it's like, this is real.
Right. Yeah. Showing what's really happening.
Yeah.
Do you think things like stories as well, where they seem to be gaining popularity? I was at an event a little while ago, and they talked about how that's probably will overtake the grid. So people want to see kind of the behind the scenes.
I have people who only watch my video, my Insta stories rather than my posts.
Really.
And the engagement is definitely there. Ask questions. Use the polls. Get direct feedback. That's your best market research. If I'm starting a product, that's my, hey, what do you think about this? Do you like this flavor? People, like, you're taking literally, what do you want to see next? This or this? And they'll guide you. Like, these are your audience. Like, make sure you talk to them and stay engaged, and also look at what they're inspired by. Something that I always didn't do, but someone taught me to do. I don't like to spend too much time on social. Like, I'll do it, post, engage, and then I'll just like stop. But someone was like, well, you should see who your followers are liking, so you can look at I was like, this is a little too much, but they're like, yeah, then you can study their habits. Like, you can understand what they're responding to.
Yeah. You've got a pretty good following. How much time would you say you spend on a day or a week just, creating content, posting content, reviewing what's worked? What would you say is in terms of hours?
I've been slowing down on social though. Like, I think going back to like having a balance, I don't want to say anything if I don't have anything meaningful to say. I think a lot of people just like, I need to post something today. And I used to post something every single day because I thought I had to. I just been like slowing down. If I have something to promote, I'm on my stories every day though, because part of my like daily non-negotiables is like I look at something like a positive quote or video. So if I share it, because there are people, if I don't share, someone's like, what's wrong with you? You haven't posted in 2 weeks, like, you know, because people come to me for inspiration and motivation. But sometimes I just want to take a moment to like listen, tune in, and spend quality time. Like even if I'm hiking, I used to like document everything. I'm just going for a hike. Like I can leave my phone here, I can chill out, I can be with my friends without like trying to like capture everything. So I'm more interested now to like use media, social media, TV for good, rather than like, because all these personal brands, it's like, enough about like, you know, it's like I want to know why you do something. I don't want to just see you like promoting something. Yeah.
And with stories, how do you do stories every day, did you say?
I try to do a story every day. I try to post at least a quote that inspired me, maybe document my swim. Like if there's a recipe, I'll share it. Just something that at the end of the day, like we use social media, it's like the new day and age. Like I realize the power of media is so powerful, and this is why content creation is so powerful. If you have something meaningful to say, you can reach a lot of people, because you can only do so many things in a day. You can only talk to so many people in a day. But if you have the right intentionality and you have a platform, you can get like a lot of people think like, oh, there's so many things going on in the world, but it's like you have the ability to impact those around you and kind of create this ripple effect. So it's like, for me, I'm like, how do I use it for good? Even with social media, like I talk to content creators. I have a meeting tomorrow with one of my video guys, right? And I'm like, I'm tired of posting like sponsor posts or like whatever, but like I now go to these brands and say, hey, give me the creativity to tell a story that I know can engage my audience more, and then I'll integrate your brand into it, and you'll probably get more traction to your brand. Just let me do what I do. Like don't tell me I have to use this hashtag, do this, because then it becomes, I'm just a robot. And I think it's so important for me to like have creative control over the content I put out, and also just doing impact. Like one of the things that me and my videographer talked about is like all these influencers with like millions of followers, how do you use that for good? There's so many worldly topics and issues that are going on. We can actually shine light on those topics. How do we get brands on board to tell something that's meaningful and create change while using our influence for good, rather than just being another influencer and doing an ad? So that's everything. Like with the social responsibility element, I think going back to accountability, I think, that's what's gonna separate the people who are in social media just for trying to influence. Like I don't want to be an influencer. Like I want to build something, and I actually want to make an impact.
And if you do have a product, then are you saying then let's say you've got a CBD drink, as we were talking about.
Yeah.
Would it be less about talking about the drink, and you would be more talking about sort of relation? How would you sort of tell us how that would work in based on what you've learned?
I would just create content around it. So for example, my friend started a CBD company for females, right? And it's beautifully designed, but it's an overly saturated market. So how do you differentiate yourselves from all the other brands? She's having meaningful conversations with real women about topics that they want to talk about. Struggling with anxiety, struggling with depression, postpartum, depression, all these things. But giving them the resources and creating community. And that's why, going back to experiential marketing, it's not a fad, it's real life. How do you connect the brand to real people and cultivate community? I think if you look at the most successful brands, they've been able to cultivate community, and that's through experiences. It's not just product. Obviously the product is kick-ass, but you don't need to always be like, look at this. That's like, it gets boring, right? If the product is good, but it's also about like, what's the mission behind the product that drives it? Like look at Tom's, like successful, everyone's trying to follow that. But a lot of people do it for the wrong reasons. Like, oh, we think we should tie it to they don't even care about it, right? They're not even doing anything. So It's really about cultivating that, going back to the why, and then making sure your audience knows why you created this product and if it's a differentiator from everyone else. So even like they did a campaign recently, the CBD company my friend started, and it's all geared towards females and like doing live events and connecting people face to face.
Right. And then when do you bring the product into that then? Is that just sort of visible in terms of the brand?
Obviously you'll want to sell it. So then it goes back to partnering with other brands that are non-competing. So say like if you have a CBD drink, like partner with a gym, like, you know, leverage your brand with another brand and then naturally get people associate. And then the people who associate with those brands, it's available, sell it there. That's your audience. Like find your niches, like where can this be beneficial? And then get and tap into it.
So next 10 years, your prediction in the sort of transformation business that you're in, what do you think is likely to happen that's not around or mainstream at the moment then?
Well, it's not mainstream. Well, I'm going to trend traditional Chinese medicine for sure. I want to bring that into the mainstream wellness kind of conversation. I think people are ready for it. It hasn't been done properly. There has been a lot of brands trying, but I don't think the brand messaging and the why is there. Like it's not strong enough. It's like there's like a disconnect there. So I want to do that, but just alternative medicine is big. Like, you know, like people are trying to brand acupuncture. I heard there's a company in New York trying to create acupuncture as if it was a dry bar.
Right.
Which is like, you know, good luck because there's needles involved, but we'll see. But I think community will never, like, you know, will always be around. Life experience, all the things that we deal with. If you look at the human needs, right? Maslow's like human, like what are the essential things that humans want? Tap into those things because those are people are looking for all the time. And how do you serve or how do you provide a service or a product that can make someone's life a little bit better? You're going to be successful.
Good advice. So final question then, Charles. Escape Your Limits is about escaping what you have believed is impossible and gone on to make possible. What would be an example of where you've escaped your own personal limits?
Escape my personal limits. Oh, so I am very scared of heights. But as I'm transforming, evolving, I'm always trying to challenge myself. So I went skydiving and I didn't hype myself up and I didn't get scared. I just did it. And then I broke my fear, but it made me question myself, like what else is possible? What else am I scared to do?
What was it like? How high did you go up?
I don't even remember how high it was. It was so high that it was sensory overload that you don't even have time to process how high it was and you just do it. Yeah. But I did it so fast. I was like, wow, I could do this again. But
did you actually end up enjoying part of it, or was it just?
No. I did enjoy it. Once I surrendered, and I was like, fuck it, I'm up in there. There's no turning back. I have to jump. And I enjoyed the view, and then I realized how hyped up it is in your mind. But that's life in general. So I think one thing that you said is like, what else is trending? I think mental health, but like meditation's already becoming this huge thing. And to me, it's really funny because how do you sell meditation? But it's becoming, because it's experiential. So you're selling the experience. So it's interesting that that's been able to trend in the wellness space and everyone's seeking peace.
Yeah, that's right. In this crazy world.
Yeah.
So Charles, thank you for coming along today.
Cheers.
Appreciate sharing some great information.
Thank you.
And best of wishes in the future. Thanks.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.